Hello, everyone, and welcome to the episode and such. In this episode, we're going to be working on implementing timers, and our current problem, which isn't that big of a deal yet, I say yet, we have a couple of timekeeping variables all updated identically. And for instance, the invincibility time that we have is updated until K invincibility time or whatever wears off. And then we also have our health text change timer. And these are all updated by using the plus equals elapsed time kind of thing. And then we're really going to have a lot more to come. I said like a billion, but that's a little bit of exaggeration. We probably will not be using a billion timers. So our solution is to organize our logic into a timer class. And this seems logical. We're in an object-oriented programming language, so let's use classes. So given an expiration time, we want our timer to be able to tell us at any point whether it's expired or still active, or even what the current time is for when we're doing our flash animation, where quote is flashing visible and invisible over and over again. We need to know the current time for our timer for that. So as a little bonus, our timers are actually going to be self-updating, and I debated about this a little bit because, you know, there's some, with everything, there are pros and cons. So the pros are we never have to worry about updating twice or not at all, which is going to probably happen quite frequently if we don't do this. I'll be honest, I make mistakes. And the other thing is we can call update once, and by that I mean we can call timer.updateAll or timer scoped into update all because it'll be static class data, and it will take care of things. So we just have to do it once, and all the timers will be updated all at once at the beginning of an update cycle. But the con is it hides when the timers are actually being updated from us, and by us I mean the player health class doesn't know when the timer is being updated. It just knows that it is being updated, and that is okay with me because every single update everyone uses the exact same elapsed time, including the timers. And yeah, it's just like it's something to consider that you're hiding an implementation detail. When someone comes to use it, they might be a little bit confused, but timers are a pretty common thing to have updating on their own, so I'm not afraid of people not being able to understand it given a little time. So that's my reasoning. Let's get started. So I'll create a new timer class. So add new item, header file, timer.h, add header guards, okay, so it's going to be struct timer, surprise, private data. We need to know the current time, which is going to be in units of milliseconds, and we also need to keep track of the expiration time. So current time, and this one won't change this expiration time because it's going to be pretty much the timer itself will be based around this expiration time. So let's make a constructor for these. So it'll be timer, it'll take in an expiration time. And I'm actually going to initialize our current time to past, a little bit past the expiration time, just so that the timer doesn't start right away. And if you don't do this, you'll see why I'm doing this a lot more clearly. Like he'll just like start his invincibility timer or whatever right away, but we don't want to start the timer. But so yeah, we'll see. Expiration timer, time +1, and then initialize our expiration time too. And that'll just be expiration time. Okay, so now let's work out a couple of the other things I mentioned. We have three things: expired, active, and current time. So we can just implement those pretty easily. Current time especially is really easy. We can just do units of milliseconds, current time. And we're just going to assume that you as the user have checked, here, I'll write this as a comment, assumes the user has checked or knows if it is active or not. This. And so what does it mean to be active? Well, we are going to say we're active, which is going to be a bool, because we're asking a question. Active, a yes/no question. And we're just going to return the current time is less than the expiration time. And we also want to do expired, which we can just return kind of trivially as not active. Oh, so I can actually change this to expiration time. Current time is expiration time, because when they're equal, then it's expired. So yeah, return not active. Okay, so now we have those three. We also need to do our update method, which is going to be private and then updated by a class method. So I'll just define it down here, void update. It's going to be, you know, the usual update, units of milliseconds, elapsed time. And all we're gonna do a check first, just so our elapsed time or our current time doesn't go crazy or whatever. We're just gonna make sure that we're active. So if we are active, then we can update the time. So that it'll just be current time plus equal elapsed time. Otherwise, if we're not active, we don't need to be incrementing the current time. Okay, so now that we have all of our base timer in place, we could, I'm going to just go ahead and implement the class bonus part of it where we make the timer self-updating. So the way this is going to work is we need a set of all the timers, and we could use a list of all the timers, but then when you want to remove something from the list, it gets kind of like hairy and really annoying. But so we're going to use a standard set for this list, and it's just going to be a static standard set of pointers to timers. And you can see it's because pointers uniquely identify a timer, any given timer, and we're going to make sure also that there only exists one of a timer. Like we can't copy and create new timers from other timers. Like you get one timer and it's that timer. Okay, so I'm going to call this timers. Let's include set. And a set is a lot like a list, except there can only be one of everything, and it's a lot easier to add and remove things. So let's add and remove things in our constructor, and we'll create a destructor to remove things. So for our constructor, we're just going to do timers dot insert this. And this is a pointer to the timer object that's currently being constructed. And so this class variable timers will have a pointer to that timer. And then we also need to remove it when we delete this class or remove it or destruct it. So timer destructor, and this is just going to be as simple as timers dot erase this. Okay. Now let's create our update all method. So this will just be a static void update all, taking in elapsed time. And we'll create a CC file for this because we also need to create a variable definition for that in a CC file. So I'm going to create a new item timer.cc. And get these stuff over there. There we go. So label it as static and scope it in. Same thing here. So this is just like the ugliest part of C++, I think, that is in common use, and it's the iterator. And this is why C++ invented the auto keyword, and I'm not going to use it. So suck it. A standard set of timer pointer, iterator, and iter. And yes, this is actually how you iterate over a set, and it's timers.begin. Iter not equal to timers.end plus iter. It's not that bad. I'm exaggerating. It's really not that bad. It was just hard to learn the first time. And all I'm going to do is dereference our iter to get our timer pointer and call update given our elapsed time. So now I'm going to head into our game class. And include our timer so that we can update our timers. Timer.h, and we'll call down in update. Before everything, we'll just say timers update all, giving it elapsed time. Okay, now I'm going to build, just make sure everything is still compiling. And yes, it is. So one more thing I want to do to our timer class, and it has to do with this thing called, I think Scott Myers named it the rule of 3. And it basically goes, if you implement a destructor or a copy constructor or an assignment operator for your class, you should implement the other two. And here we've implemented our destructor, so now we need to think about this. Why do we need a copy constructor, or do we need a assignment constructor? And the answer is no. We shouldn't be copying our timers over, because when we do that, we will end up constructing and inserting into the set of timers, and it'll be the same timer that we're inserting, and so we'll have two of the same timer in here, and that's not something that we want to have happen. So what we're going to do is we're going to use a boost class called boost non-copyable, and we can just implement privately, private implementation inheritance, and this will just get rid of the default, or stop C++ from making the default the copy constructor and assignment operator, so that we don't run into the problem of having the same timer, or meaning to have the same timer, but have it be really two different timers. Yeah, it's kind of complicated stuff, so it's really hard to explain it. But it gets pretty complicated. So private boost non-copyable, and we won't have to deal with the copy constructor or the assignment operator. Okay, so now that that's out of the way, we can go ahead and use our new timer classes in our, let's start with our playerhealth.cc and playerhealth.h so that we can look at our player health struct. So instead of having a damage time, I'm going to change this to a damage timer. So let's include timer, of course. Damage timer, and this is not going to be units of milliseconds anymore. It's going to be timer. So let's go into playerhealth.cc and initialize our timer with our expired time. So what is that? K damage delay. That's the number we're looking for. K damage delay. And wherever we see damage time, we don't need to update it anymore. And so here we're checking to see if damage time is expired. So we can just change this to if damage timer dot expired. Then we can set our current health back. There's one more damage time, I think, down here where we need to reset our damage time. So that's actually one more thing I want to implement in our timer, and that is reset method. So this will be void reset and set our current time to be equal to 0. So let's keep updating in our player health.cc, and we'll just call this new reset method. I think that's it. We can combine these two if statements now. And I'm happy with that. And then there was one more timer we were using, which was in our player.h, and that is our invincible time and our invincible. And we can actually combine these into a single timer, so I'm going to do that. Timer, invincible, timer, and I'll get rid of my invincible and we'll see how we can combine those. So let's go into our player.cc and implement that. This is a K invincible time. Yeah, so this gets K invincible time. So if invincible, we're going to do a check where we say if invincible timer dot active instead of if invincible. And then we don't need to update it anymore because that's getting taken care of for us. And we're just setting this. We actually can just get rid of this whole thing because we're just setting this to invincible to be equal to invincible timers expired, whether or not it's expired. Anyway, invincible time. So if invincible timer dot active, we can return, and we can reset it here. Here we go. So if invincible timer dot active and invincible timer dot current time. Let's build and run and make sure I didn't break anything. So far, so good. Let's go over, and everything's animating right. Oh, that's actually one more place we can do our timer, which is in the animated sprite. But so far, it seems like everything else is working out just fine. So let's look at our animated sprite and then be done with this episode. So animated sprite.h and .cc. So instead of a frame time and a current elapsed time, I'm just going to change these to a timer. So this will be timer elapsed time, and this is no longer relevant. I'll just call it frame timer. And include timer. And set everything up. So frame time, this is going to be frame timer. Gets initialized with that. I'm going to move this to the top. It's easier. We don't need elapsed time anymore. That's in our frame timer. So we don't need to update our elapsed time. And what we're saying is if it's expired, so if frame timer dot expired. And then elapsed time is setting back to 0. That's the same as resetting our frame timer. So frame timer dot reset. So now let's build and run again and make sure I really didn't break anything. Boom. He's still animating. Perfect. Sweet. Okay, thanks for watching. Happy developing.